Scooby Doo was my and many others' first introduction into the wide umbrella that is the horror genre, while Five Nights at Freddy's was the first horror game I actually played. And with FNAF being shrouded in mystery both in-universe and in real life, it's only natural to leave the mystery solving up to the Mystery Incorporated gang. This was supposed to be a horror channel, but you guys don't seem to like that, so kids horror will have to do. Can Mystery Incorporated solve the Freddy Fazbear's mystery? Alright, so let's set the stage. I'll be going with the Mystery Gang from 2010's Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated. There are hundreds of episodes throughout the many decades of Scooby Doo's existence, along with dozens of movies, so I figured only taking one specific canon into account was the best way to go, as it gives us less inconsistencies, and I am not watching thousands of hours worth of Scooby Doo for this video. And as for FNAF, the lore spans a few decades, so this will specifically take place during the events of the very first game, so the dingy old Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria that kicked off the entire franchise. There's a few details in the lore that aren't 100% agreed upon, that I'll be assuming here for the sake of the flow of the video. So early 90s, but still before the events we see in the FNAF 3 minigames where William Afton disassembles the animatronics, then gets spring-locked. Here's the lore I'll be running with here. There's been the original Fredbear's Family Diner, the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in FNAF 2, and the very short-lived Circus Baby's Pizza World, which then turns into Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental. At this point in the timeline, William Afton's youngest son is chomped by Fredbear.
Was that the bite of it?
Charlie Emily is killed outside of a Freddy's establishment by William, and goes on to possess the puppet. William's only daughter, Elizabeth, is killed by Circus Baby and then possesses the robot, and of course the missing children incident where William kills 5 kids and leaves them around the pizzeria, which the puppet then gives life to by stuffing them into the animatronics. I won't be accounting for the possibility of multiple MCIs for simplicity's sake, and I'll be assuming that the events of Sister Location come after the first game, so no Zombie Michael. Is this the perfect interpretation of the lore? No. But that's what we're running with. This isn't a lore video. If you don't like it, then go watch Right Toast or something. So now that we got the basic lore out of the way, what exactly is Mystery Inc. up against? In FNAF 1, we see 4 animatronics: Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. During the day, they're pretty ordinary animatronics that you'd see at any Chuck E. Cheese-esque restaurant, singing and dancing and hanging out with kids. But at night, they become aggressive towards any adult they see, attempting to forcibly stuff them into a spare animatronic suit, which would kill them. The animatronics themselves are really strong, capable of easily overpowering most people, smashing through walls, and picking up large objects. They're also surprisingly fast, able to close distances during the time it takes for a light to flicker. It's so fast that it almost seems like teleportation, but if we don't see them poof away and materialize somewhere else, then I won't count it. We do also know that the animatronics can and will leave the pizzeria seeking certain people at times in the books, but the gang's main threat in the pizzeria would be Golden Freddy. Since across different FNAF media, it's clear that he doesn't operate like the other animatronics. Despite having a physical suit, he doesn't walk around like the others and seems to actually teleport unlike his fellow robo-pals. He also seems to kill you in a different manner. While the others get down in physical, breaking bones and tearing you apart, Golden Freddy just stares and causes your game to crash, implying that he has some sort of death stare. But these 5 aren't the only ones the gang is likely to encounter. In their search for clues, they'd undoubtedly run into Circus Baby, a 7-foot-tall baby clown robot that can sing, dance, make ice cream and balloons, as well as eject a scooper out of her stomach and grab hold of people, reel them in, then crush them inside of her. As well as the puppet, the marionette possessed by Charlie, who can more or less just kind of fly around and lunge at people. But of course there's always the evil man in a costume that they'd have to unmask, William Afton. Although at this point in the timeline, he isn't running around killing people in the Spring Bonnie costume. He does still keep it around, likely in the safe room from the FNAF 1 pizzeria, and would definitely use it again on the gang if and when he finds out that they're onto him. William Afton as a regular man isn't too impressive physically. Like, yeah, he did destroy the animatronics, but he obviously knows how to work around the robotic parts, and he caught them by surprise, so it doesn't automatically mean he's just as strong as them. But while he has his Spring Bonnie suit on, it does stand to reason that he's roughly as strong as the other animatronics, easily overpowering people and even snapping necks with a single hand. But William is also a genius engineer, helping create the main animatronics alongside Henry Emily, including the toys we saw in FNAF 2 with built-in facial recognition. Mind you, this was back in the 80s, but while he isn't collaborating with his best pal, he's capable of creating far more dangerous robots, namely the fun times that can lure kids in with things like voice mimicry, scent release, and deter and misdirect, whatever that means. But even if the fun times were made at this point in the timeline, they likely aren't haunted with Remnant just yet. He's also built robotic shredders made to rip people apart if the movie and Dead by Daylight are anything to go off of. William managed to avoid arrest all the way up until his death, presumably right around the events of the first game. So what does Mystery Inc. bring to the table, and can they apprehend William before he kills more people? Again, I'm only going off of Cartoon Network's Mystery Incorporated, mainly because it's the one I watch in its entirety as a kid, did, and again for this video. Not to say that the other series like 1999 Scooby Doo Where Are You aren't relevant here, since it seems like at the point of the pilot episode, a lot of those old encounters are now on display and others are mentioned in passing like the Creeper, Minor 49er, or the Gypsy. And I'll be taking the version of Mystery Inc. after season 2, so they've already captured all the monsters, saved their universe, and reset the timeline. The show got pretty crazy. There's almost 50 antagonists throughout the series, so I obviously won't be going over each and every one individually, but they do encounter a lot of varying types of enemies. Flyers, teleporters, big crabs, lightning summoners, various types of mind controllers, and the list goes on. The most relevant ones here are the machine-related ones. The Fright Hound was a robotic dog that was strong enough to burst through concrete walls, Chargar Gothicon shrieked hard enough to blow over cars, and the wizards used jetpacks and Tesla coils to shoot electricity. Keep in mind that all 3 of these were explicitly stated to use military-grade technology. But as far as the gang themselves, they all bring something to the table, but Fred and Velma are by far the MVPs of the group. Shaggy and Scooby are usually the lazy scaredy cats with an appetite half the size of my own, who usually act as bait to lure in the man with the mask. But of course, they both have their brave moments when it comes to saving their friends, and have fought with monsters when the situation calls for it. Daphne is pretty lucky, finding clues or secret areas sometimes by complete accident, which usually I'd say isn't too applicable, but it's consistent enough to mention. She's also really acrobatic, jumping and flipping away from people trying to grab hold of her. Velma is the smart one of the group, and is usually the one to put together who the person really is under the mask, even before actually unmasking them. She's generally pretty intuitive and perceptive, like how she noticed that Dead Justice used his right hand to shoot a gun when the original was a lefty, or when she put together the fact that Angel was Cassidy from the Mystery Incorporated that preceded them. Velma has software programs that allow her to track people from satellites, a general GPS tracker, has a testing kit that allows her to run tests on materials and or substances to find out what they are. She's mechanically handy, creating a rudimentary disc player for the planispheric disc, which is essentially a treasure map created 500 years prior. She's also a computer whiz and has pretty reliably hacked into multiple computers throughout the show. And of course, that leaves us with the team leader, Fred Jones. Fred's obsessed with traps in the show to the point he can call out any room that has been trapped even if it would seem perfectly ordinary otherwise. He can tell what the tensile strength of a rope is just by looking at it, survived and escaped traps set by master trappers before him like his parents, who were also in the previous Mystery Inc. and trapped their own set of people for years, or Danny Darrow, who went crazy underground with nothing but his traps that he set. He even knows how traps set centuries prior work just by looking at them, despite having little to no prior experience against them. His traps are strong enough to apprehend even the strongest people, like the Man Crab, Headless Horror, Scare Bear, or Humongonauts. These guys can destroy walls, slice through metal, or even straight up destroy buildings by smashing through them. Some traps are really elaborate multi-step Rube Goldberg machines, while others are much simpler, but they all catch their intended target more often than not. He's even made traps on the fly in some episodes. Fred's also just really tough, fighting guys mano a mano or jumping onto moving planes, and despite being portrayed as a bit of an airhead, he's really smart himself. Aside from his ability to create large-scale traps, he was able to see right through his evil mom trying to manipulate him by pretending to be old Daphne, while his dad pretended to be Fred in order to steal the planispheric disc. Fred was able to send subliminal messages to the rest of the group just by taking fake Daphne to different locations that spelled out fake Fred when putting together the first 2 letters of each location, and Velma was able to immediately pick up on this. And the man is a pretty insane driver, able to get away from dudes in Harleys and remote-controlled ghost trucks. And it goes without saying that the mystery machine itself is full of traps. So how would this encounter go? Brace yourselves because we're heading into fanfiction territory.
Jinkies, what a mystery!
You're right, Scoob. We're dealing with one sick son of a bitch.
So this is right after the end of the 2nd season, where the gang is heading across the country planning to solve every mystery and eat at every pizza joint along the way. Truly a 2-for-1 deal here.
Why can we also stop and eat at every burger place and pizza joint we find along the way too?
The gang stops at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, smell the rancid animatronic with black ooze seeping from their eyes and mouths, and go on to ask around and find out that multiple kids have gone missing or just died around this establishment. Given their usual MO, they'd almost certainly come back at night only to be greeted by the 4 animatronics trying to kill them. Power scaling is taking a backseat this time around since mystery solving is the most important part here. Scooby and pals can run faster than sound waves at times, and I've seen some absolutely wacky scaling for FNAF characters, so equalization for the sake of the story is the way to go here. Throughout all corners of the FNAF franchise, the animatronics have a consistent weakness to electricity. Although it doesn't destroy them outright, it can incapacitate them for long periods of time. We see this with the controlled shocks in game, live wires in books, and just a taser in the movies. This should be a reliable way to take down every animatronic they run into, except maybe for the puppet, but even just water will power the puppet down. Given their ability to survive dangerous situations, as well as being extremely lucky, they'd almost certainly survive a random encounter with the animatronics, likely utilizing their weakness to electricity. But without too much prior context aside from probably finding out that there are 5 missing kids and 3 more dead ones throughout the span of a year or two, which doesn't exactly align with the 4 animatronics they'd see in their first run-in, the first logical conclusion they'd come to is that someone, possibly the children's killer, was controlling the robots. As for clues, they'd likely ask those close to the company and tragedies, but we don't know much about like Gabriel's parents, but this would include Henry Emily and William Afton. Henry seemed to turn a blind eye from William's crimes despite seemingly knowing that his friend killed his daughter. He would at the very least point the mystery gang his way, and they'd surely try and find Michael Afton after learning about the whole accidentally killing his brother thing. Michael was also forced to help his dad in some ways, FNAF 4 possibly being some sort of simulation to torture / experiment on him. If he is the protagonist of FNAF 1, 3, and 6, that would mean he's actively spending his life trying to bring William down, and would certainly help the gang with stopping his dad. As for those close to the company, this would still include Henry and William, but Ralph the phone guy too. With Michael and Ralph's testimonies, as well as some weird occurrences involving the animatronics, Mystery Inc. would eventually come to the conclusion that these robots are in fact haunted, which, as hard as it was for the gang to come to the conclusion that paranormal things exist the first time around, surely after the run-in with a universe-ending monster, kids possessing robots isn't too crazy, all things considered. Michael would likely lead them to the Afton's home where they'd find the underground lair, probably because Daphne accidentally found the elevator or something. And it's in the lair that the gang would find irrefutable evidence that William is the killer, with tons of schematics alongside gigantic high-tech animatronics literally built to lure and capture kids. Although, like I said, the fun times themselves aren't haunted yet, just Circus Baby. Baby hasn't gone full-blown supervillain just yet, so it is possible that she would manipulate the gang into believing her and feeling sorry for her. But she's obviously still evil and would want a way out. But even if she were to get a hold of one of them to scoop their insides out in the scooping room, Velma's and Fred's handiness for all things mechanical would definitely allow them to save whoever's captured. Honestly, Fred could escape from a spring-lock suit or the scooping room on his own. The fun time should go down just as easily to any sort of shock. The puppet's whereabouts during any game that isn't FNAF 2 or 6 is pretty much unknown. It's implied that she is much harder to get a hold of, thus the creation of Lefty, an animatronic made by Henry specifically created to capture her since she wouldn't fall for the pizzeria itself. The puppet seems to be a lot more understanding, claiming to be much more aware, while the others are like animals in ultimate custom night.
The others are like animals, but I am very aware.
Which is nice considering it's one of the creepiest things to come out of the series. The bar is pretty low though. So while the main animatronics are inhabited by angry spirits and Baby is just evil, the puppet very well can be reasoned with. We don't see much of the puppet though, at least as a genuine antagonist aside from FNAF 2, so it's kinda just up in the air how she'd react to a group trying to help her. I guess we'll see in the next movie. Since Remnant is a substance in the FNAF universe that puts a science behind possession, it's very possible that by their encounters with the animatronics, Velma could get a hold of a piece of an animatronic to figure out how Remnant works and how superheating the affected metal removes the soul from it even before William does in this alternate timeline, luring every animatronic to one location with the help of Scooby and Shaggy. They've avoided attacks from powerful enemies on a similar level as the FNAF animatronics, so not dying should be pretty easy. Then light the whole place on fire to free all the souls about 2 decades earlier than in the original lore. But that does leave us with Golden Freddy, who is a lot more dangerous than the others simply because he can be a bit more ghostly. I'll be assuming that Golden Freddy is inhabited by both the souls of the crying child, William's son, and Cassidy, the vengeful 5th victim in the MCI. As we know, Cassidy isn't ready to let go at the time of her death, keeping William in an endless purgatory long after they're all gone. Cassidy obviously didn't interfere with FNAF 6's ending, so it's possible she'd allow this to play out similarly, along with the crying child most likely just wanting to move on to the afterlife, and not caring to partake in any sort of revenge. Regardless, the Golden Freddy suit should be susceptible to fire the way that any of the others would be, so their spirits would also be set free whether Cassidy wants to or not. And that leaves the main man himself, William Afton. Honestly, it probably wouldn't take long for anyone looking into this whole thing to come to the conclusion that William is the kid killer. I may be reaching here, but the game seemed to want to portray William as this evil mastermind, but
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
Like I said before, he is definitely a smart guy when it comes to robotics, I mean, I can't make one of these. But he left a lot of loose ends, like a business partner who totally knows he killed his daughter, a now adult son he traumatized at a young age, a literal underground supervillain lair right under his house, and murdered at least 6 kids at the place he helped create and even worked at as a night guard. This guy was anything but careful, and the mystery gang would surely be quick to pick up on all of this. Velma has downloaded building layouts and hacked computers in multiple different episodes, so finding out what's hiding in the FNAF safe room or on William's computer should easily give them what they're looking for. We don't know if William has any sort of failsafe aside from Michael's role in sister location, which is more likely than not just in case he's arrested or dies, which he does. But I highly doubt the place is lined with traps or anything. Not that it matters, because it definitely wouldn't be anything Fred hadn't seen before. William is considerably stronger while in the spring Bonnie suit, and doesn't have a weakness to electricity like the animatronics do. In fact, he seems completely immune to it, which could throw the gang off a bit, but at the point of the final confrontation, they know this was William in a suit and not an animatronic with robotic parts. The gang has failed in some instances, but it's usually due to some inner problems with the members of the gang, like relationship drama. But when everything's good, they work like a well-oiled machine. Traps going down in the exact way Fred plans them in an obviously cartoonish fashion. Honestly, with how sensitive the spring locks seem to be, one of Fred's rowdier traps could very well set them off and just straight up kill William, which must be really trippy for Shaggy. Despite the decades of in-universe lore, solving the mystery of Five Nights at Freddy's would just be another episode for Mystery Inc., which they'd get through pretty easily in like 3 or 4 days max. Mystery Incorporated solves that mystery. I know this video is pretty on brand for me in terms of topic, but in execution, it felt a lot different. Just literal fanfiction. It was fun to make, and if you like this video, let me know. It's cool to switch it up from, oh, who's tougher or who can destroy more universes. Huge thanks to Abari for today's thumbnail. His Twitter's down in the description, as per usual. Next video is Pennywise versus the Stranger Things kids, so another KindaSubpar fanfiction. Subscribe to see when that's out, and I'll see you guys later.